I'd like to welcome everyone to today's webinar. My name is Jonathan Bannister. I am with Cornerstone Marketing Solutions. We are an HVAC and plumbing marketing company and proud partners with York Factory Direct. And we appreciate York for helping us put this together today and bring the York dealers to today's webinar. And I have as a guest speaker today, Ken Goodrich. He's the president and CEO of Goettl Air Conditioning. He's also the co-author of the EMyth HVAC Contractor, Why Most HVAC Companies Don't Work and What to Do About It. For the first 50 people that signed up for today's webinar, Ken and York have worked together to provide signed copies of his book, and Ken's going to be also giving away some of his Goettl flashlights. They're really cool, old school style flashlights. He'll probably tell the story about that. And so a little bit about Ken. In the last 30 plus years of him being in the HVAC business, he has bought and sold over 24 companies. He started working out in this business with his dad, holding a flashlight that we were talking about when he was 10 years old. And at the age of 25, his father passed away, and he started the process of buying his father's business from his mom. And, having the goal in mind, Ken and I talked about this, his goal, and he'll talk a little bit more of what that time frame looked like, but his goal when he bought the business was to be able to sell it for $1 million and actually walk away from the HVAC industry. And when that time came to sell it, he actually sold it for 6 times what his original goal was. And it kind of sparked Ken and who he is today and what drove him to turn in, to what he has been able to produce, his brand and his name today. So with that, I would like to introduce Ken Goodrich and welcome him to today's webinar. So Ken, thank you for being here, and anything that I missed on that open introduction, please feel free to fill in.
I'm happy to be here, and I'm happy to share my story and certainly kind of maybe help some fellow contractors stay away from some potholes that I've experienced over the years, and with the goal of trying to make a better industry for us all. I think you got the intro.
Awesome. So also on today's call, I have my director of sales and operations, Drew Elliott. And, between Drew and I, we're going to ask Ken some questions that we feel that from working with our clients, what they tell us some of their pain points are, and some things that we've picked the brains of some of the, brightest minds in this industry. And obviously I brought Ken here today because I truly believe he is one of those top minds in this field. And I want to be able to deliver to our clients and to York's customers what are those key fundamental elements to make sure that you have a successful business, and then what are some of those things that you've seen yourself do and other friends of yours in this industry that have been killers that either caused them to have to close their doors, sell their business. So talking about that, what are some of the fundamentals that you learned, and then how long did it take you to learn some of those top fundamentals from the time you bought the business from your mom to you really figured out, okay, these things have to be done or you're not going to have success?
So, I got started in the business, been in it all my life, like Jonathan said, 10 years old, holding a flashlight from my dad. Was a helper, then a technician, then an installer, and fabricated sheet metal, and everything you can possibly do. I worked every night in the summer for my dad, and got through college. And about the time I was wrapping up that, he passed away, and so I bought the business from my mom. Now, my dad was a small kind of one-man operation. I was generally the only employee, He'd go out and do the sales and help me from time to time. I'd do most of the work. And then we'd hire people from time to time if we had a bigger job. But that's how I got in the business, from the ground up. And when he passed away, I made a decision to go ahead and buy the business from my mom, which buying the business was a 1970 Ford van that he bought from the school district salvage auction, and some old tools and 115 customers in 3x5 file cards in a little tin box. That's what I got. And so, but I, had bigger dreams. I wanted to have a business. I'd always talk about to my dad, why don't we hire employees and grow and such? And he was anti-employee, just said, that's where all the problems come with is employees. And I just want to keep it small and make my money and go home at night and not worry about it. So, that was his philosophy. I'm 25, idealist. I want to have a company and, have fancy cars and sit in the office with my feet up on the desk and smoke big cigars and, be a big deal, right? So I went out, I started my own business. I started hiring people and growing the company. And, it didn't take very long before I was, out of the field and I was in my office and I was playing businessman. And, long story short, in a couple of years, I got way behind. I was upside down. The IRS money, vendors a lot of money. And, it got to the point where I had to make some key decisions on how I'm going to conduct myself through this process. And so a friend had given me the EMyth book. And I encourage anyone here that's on this call today, if you never read it, you should get the EMyth revisited. EMyth by Michael Gerber. And that was the foundational book that I read. And then, 30 years later, I co-authored a book with them, focused more on my journey through the EMyth book and my experience on how to apply what he was teaching in the book to the HVAC business. So I got the book. I'm in trouble. I'm days away from shutting the doors and going to have to tell my mom that, I blew up the family business and I can't pay her the payments anymore. That, the family business supported us for 20 years. I blew it up. And I just decided I couldn't do that. I couldn't do that to my mom. I couldn't get away from the IRS. I had to cut it out and figure it out. And so I had the book, the EMyth, and I started reading it. And I read the book. And I said, how's this guy? How's Michael Gerber? He's got to be hiding in the bushes watching me every day because he knows everything about me. He knows all the mistakes I make, how I think wrong. And I was so intrigued by that. The first time I pulled it out, I didn't even go to bed that night. I read the whole book. And then I was so excited, I read it the next day. And then, over time, I kept it with me for several years, about 3 years in my back pocket. I figured out this business. And I just applied the principles. And once I had problems, I'd pull the book out, I'd look at it, get regrounded, and essentially what the book says is, so, I applied the teaching of the business. In the business, the book premise goes like this. A business is not your life. A business is something that you own. A business is something that you grow and create. And in a business is not you showing up every day, or you and a few people showing up every day and fixing air conditioners or fixing plumbing systems and going home and making money. A business is a set of systems. So you can teach employees on how to deliver your products and services your way, your unique way, such that you can duplicate and grow and scale the business. And then have eventually a prototype business that can be duplicated anywhere in the world, the same way, like a McDonald's, for instance. Or you can build a business that the value is significantly more for the set of systems and the people and the goodwill of the company. It's worth much more than the annual income. So for instance, when you sell a business, the valuations are somewhere between typical 3 to 5 times your profits. So 5 years profits to take off the table at one time. Right now, the market is so hot, and so there's so many private equity firms interested in it that if you have a business that looks like it can scale, they're trading as high as 7 to 10 times. So you could take 10 years of income off the table at one shot. So anyway, I got interested in that, and Michael Gerber's teaching was, you're not in the HVAC business or in the restaurant business or the car business. You are in the business of building businesses. And so I wanted to get this long route to say this. When you make the choice that you're a business builder and not an HVAC contractor, when you make that choice mentally and you say, this is what I'm doing, I'm building a business, that is the first step for you to catapult your business and build something of value. Build something that's more valuable than just the annual or monthly cash flows. So I took the book, I started applying these principles, I stood back from the business and I started to implement them, and started growing companies.
So you had mentioned to me, Ken, that and I was kind of shocked by this because I had mentioned you on our pre-set call to go over some questions and how we were going to lay out this webinar. And you had told me that 3 things that you learned, and it took you several years to learn them, that you called fundamentals that every contractor should be doing or very concerned with and needed to get it completely dialed in or would fail to have true success. And you had said lead generation, lead conversion, client fulfillment. So how long did it take you to understand those 3 components? And can you just touch a little bit on what you mean by each one for the people on this call?
So, I was probably in my 4th year before I kind of really grasped it. And it's in the book, it's in the EMyth Revisited, but really understood because, some of us that start out as technicians or tradesmen are at somewhat of a disadvantage because we can always fall back to the trade. And when we don't really know what to do, we can jump in the job and start getting distracted by the work. And, that was always my challenge. I mean, I still today, I'm an air conditioning guy and, we own big plumbing businesses too, but, I just, love to get in the middle of the work. And so as an air conditioning technician / owner, you find yourself, wanting to meddle into the installations or the service and be the super tech and the super know-it-all of that piece of the business. And that's just one element of it. And so I figured it out. And what I figured out was all businesses run by the fundamentals of all business run with 3 legs. 3 legs of the stool. Lead generation. I got to go out and buy. And I'm going to say buy. A lot of people say, well, I work with word of mouth, but you bought that word of mouth. You bought that reputation. So you got to buy a lead every day. A lead's got to come in. And then you got to convert the lead. You got to convert it over the telephone or the website. You got to convert it to an appointment. And then you convert that lead to a sale. Lead generation. I've generated the lead. I've bought leads. I've done internet, radio, direct mail, whatever means there are. Telephone book even still works. And then I've converted it into a lead. And then, I'm sorry, convert a lead, then I convert it into a sale. And once I get the sale converted and contracted, I convert it into a client fulfillment. I go do the work. I fulfill the contract. Lead generation, lead conversion, client fulfillment. So you as the leader of the business really have to, that's your core of the business. There's other elements we'll talk about, but that's the core. You got your number one priority is to make sure that those three elements are firing every single day. If you have 4 technicians in the field, you have to make sure your lead generation system is filling the pipeline so they got 3 to 4 calls a day to run, so that you can convert those into sales, so that you can convert that into a client fulfillment situation and do the work. And so once I kind of got that routine down, understanding, got to generate a lead, I got to convert a lead to a sale, and I got to get the work done. When I say get the work done, I mean get the work done with my unique way, my unique selling proposition, and my cocktail, if you will, with no callbacks, no issues, perfectly executed. So you get those 3 things going, and those 3 things going, the key fundamentals of this is metrics. You know how many you need. I have to, I need to keep these guys busy. Here's my plan for the month. I need to generate this many calls or this many sales leads. Here's how I'm going to pay for them. Here's how much they cost. And here's what I have to do to convert them into sales. Get the sales, and each one of these pieces and parts, you can dig in, you got to dig into, like in the lead conversion system. Okay, I got a lead conversion system, so I have to quantify the results. I have to have a sales system that people follow that create predictable results that I can train people to use. And then I have, reporting metrics coming back to me so I can manage my staff. So I guess what I'm saying here is that you start off as most people start off like me in the industry. I guess less now than it used to be, but most of people started out as a technician, many people working with their family, holding the flashlight for the dad. And it's just a completely different skill set than running a business. So, got to generate a lead. I got to convert that lead to a sale, and I got to get the work done. So those are the 3 fundamentals. And then we'll explore the next 4 other fundamentals that as you evolve, you need to implement your business. But I want to say this first. If I had it to do all over again, and I knew what I knew now, the first thing I would have done is I would have got me a warehouse, and I would have built up, I'm the HVAC guy, so I would have built up the 3 or 4 HVAC systems that I was going to sell. In my markets, I have heat pumps, I have package units, I have gas splits, so it would be, call it 3 times 3 or 9 different scenarios, but I would build them up, and I would make them my way. So this is my way. This is my system. This is, in our particular case, this is the Goettl system. And so the Goettl system looks like this. This is how everything's installed. Here's our particular differentiators. For instance, on our Goettl system and our split systems, we build our own secondary drain pan that fits from plenum to plenum. There's no possible chance that the water's going to find a way to leak into the ceiling of the house. We make sure that the condensate trap and everything come out of the coil is inside the pan as well, because that's always a sore spot for people and customers who've had that problem before. When you point that out, they buy. They know that you know what you're doing, and they don't want that bad experience again. So anyway, my point is that you build the school. This is how we do it. You take pictures. You make some quick, easy explanations of each pictures. You put it in a book. You have a system whereby when the job's done, these 7, 10, 22, in our particular case now, it's 22 different pictures, come over on every job. And they can't leave the job until the pictures have been approved. So we have a quality control method. So I got the school created, very simple school. I'm bringing people in, and they're being trained to install my systems my way, and the difference between each system. So the installers know how to install them, the technicians know how to set them up, the salesmen know, the differences between the system and the differentiating factors between your company, and you start off on the right foot from day one. As soon as your lead conversion process goes into place, you sell a job. You know the job's going to go in right your way, makes it honors the promises that you made to your customer, honors the promise you make with your brand, and you take that burden of the installation off your back so you can focus on the next two most important things: generating a lead and making a sale. So I would start at client fulfillment and get that in place. The last several deals that I've done where I bought these underperforming companies, that's the first thing I did. I set the training modules up, we set the books up, we use a particular app called iAuditor where you put the pictures in they're supposed to take, and we got that off our plate. And it's amazing what that does for you. I've been in a lot of businesses over the years whereby they got installation problems and they're spinning their wheels, and they spend 1/3 of their crews or 20% of their crews are going back for warranty calls and problems and such. Look, one of the greatest corporations ever built is McDonald's. And McDonald's has their way of doing things. I use this analogy a lot because it's simple and it's clearly understandable, and they were the innovators of this systematic way of running a business. But, at McDonald's, they have a sandwich called a Big Mac. And they don't just hire Joe the fry cook from Mary's Hash House or, a guy from Wendy's to come over and say, all right, get in the back and make me a Big Mac. They don't know how to make a Big Mac. They train someone to make a Big Mac their way, in their time frame, with their quality every single time. That's why you can get one no matter where you go, and it's pretty much the same thing. What we do is typically as HVAC guys or tradesmen or home service contractors, whatever you want to call us, we say, hey, where'd you come from? Where'd you work for? Oh, I used to work for Goettl. Oh, if he worked for Goettl, he must be good. Put him in a truck and have him go install. And then that's when the whole thing unravels. So I'm sure that I'm preaching to the choir here. Everybody understands what I'm talking about. You got to get this client fulfillment thing done first. So when you go out to the jobs, you can sell with confidence that it gets done with no customer issues, and you can move on and maximize the productivity of your crews. So that's where I would start. Now, lead generation. We can go into all kinds of stuff about that, but is starting out, you just really have to start focusing on your plan. I have a plan. This is the revenue I want to create. This is the profitability I want to create. Here's my gross margin targets, all the stuff. But it all breaks down to number of leads. Everything breaks down to number of leads.
It's funny you say that, Ken, because one thing that we've noticed here in the last several years is how many contractors that we talk to that don't know those numbers. You had made a comment a little bit ago about lead gen, lead conversion. You're like, you know how many you need, and I was in my head going, there's so many people we talk to that they don't know that number. We try to reverse engineer that with anybody that we're talking to, because we try to start with, they typically know how much money they made last year as a business, and they can tell us how much money they want to do in the next 12 months, but they have really no clue how they're going to get there or how much money it's going to take. And, it's not as simple as a one size fits all, like this is what it's going to take, or we've heard those numbers of if you're trying to grow your business, you need to be spending 8 or 10% of your total revenue should be towards marketing. I've heard other people say, 4 to 6, and for me, I think it comes down to more than that. It comes down to, well, your particular business, what is your average replacement tickets and what is your average repair tickets? And that's going to be different from business to business and location of the country. And when you really reverse engineer all that, that's when it comes down to, well, based off of your numbers and your close rate percentages, this is how many leads you need to come in. Now, us as being the marketing company, then we got to figure out where we're going to get those leads from. But it really starts with, you need to know how many leads you need to accomplish that goal that you want. And I think a lot of people don't even start with that. We find that they're throwing money at marketing and kind of seeing where it sticks. And that's unfortunate, right? Because they all kind of say, well, I want to grow my business this year by 1 million. I did 3 million last year. I want to do 4, and they don't know if that's going to take $20,000 to do, or is it going to take 200,000? So no one's really got them to the point of, these are your numbers. And look, it may come down, another thing is, I say no in the numbers, but some people we talk to, I'm like, well, what is your close rates on replacement? And they try to tell me, oh, we're at 50%. I'm like, it's almost impossible. No one has 50%. And I'm not talking about their maintenance agreement customers, their referral-based customers. I'm talking about true leads, whether it's internet leads or if it's direct mail leads. I know that the industry average is nowhere near 50%. So it's an indicator to me that they don't know their numbers off the bat. So how important it is to you to know those numbers right out the gate.
If you don't know those numbers, then you shouldn't be in. You should just throw in the towel and get out of the business. I mean, there's places where you can learn it and educate yourself, but you got to go get that knowledge. One thing that years ago I read a book by Tom Monahan, who created Domino's Pizza. And I don't know if you know this or not, but Domino's Pizza, the name Domino's came from, he had failed 3 times. This was his, maybe he failed twice before. This was his 3rd time. And he said, this is my last chance. I'm going to try it again. And he named it Domino's because the others are falling like dominoes. That's how the Domino's name came up. But what he really understood, what he figured out through all his failure was that he needed to have 3 times more accountants than he thought he did, that he did in his other ventures, to make it work, to where they count everything. And so, but we could talk about leads and conversions and average tickets. We could talk about for hours that piece of it. And maybe that's fodder for another webinar one day. Just generally focus on that. But you got to run the business by the numbers. And so to the extent that you're not doing that, that needs to be mission 1. As soon as I got a high fidelity on my numbers, I got good accounting. And so you get good accounting, you start to look at it and you say, man, I do all this work and there's nothing left. And you start to be able to see, you pull the levers and see, cause and effect on everything you do and just internalize it. That's how you start making good decisions, as well as, like I said, getting involved in some of these best practice groups. And I believe that York has, some of that training and access to these tools that you need. But the fundamentals of, you got to get a good account. If you're going to be in business, you have to have a budget, a plan for the year, and you have to have monthly P&Ls. Like in my particular business, our standard is 5 days. 5 days after the close of the following month, I have a full set of financials. because I need to know where we need to adjust and pivot to make the business work. So you can't get to understanding lead generation, lead conversion until you understand what the numbers are with budget and some financial statements. And the budget would be a mock financial statement. I don't know where I was really going with this, but you really just have to have a high fidelity of numbers. If people are going to ask me, okay, what's one of the keys to the growth of Goettl, which we've grown significantly over a short period of time, I would say we are a metrics-driven business. We have a high fidelity on our numbers. Everybody, all my operators, know the numbers backwards and forwards. We have 2 calls a week with our managers where we have a routine. So they talk about each numbers and the numbers that we track and how they relate to the plan. I have, I've run 641 calls to date on a budget of 812 to date. I'm down by this many calls. And so they come and they report. My next routine is what's our diagnostic fee only? We're tracking how many times we visit a customer and they do not elect to go with us for repair or replacement. So what's the DFO, we call it. And we try to keep that number in check. That number can, if you're not watching it, that number can creep up. I've bought companies where, 33% of every customer contact they made didn't buy anything. You bought the lead, you dispatched the guy, you paid the guy, and 1 out of 3 people said, I don't like or trust you. So anyway, we have our number. Our number has to be less than 10 on that particular metric. And we have our repairs. How many of these jobs do we convert to a repair? And what's the average ticket? And what's the revenue? And what's our goal? What was our plan? And you're judging it to your plan and you're making your adjustments. What's your IQ sales? What's your conversion or lead conversion? You go to a customer's house and it's not economical for them to repair. You create a lead for a replacement opportunity. We track that. And we have plumbing businesses too, so we track, what is the goal for converting to a plumbing referral. I know we're getting really in the weeds here. I just want to kind of give you a perspective of, if you're going to build a business, if you're going to build a business, and to me, a business is a set of systems, a brand, and not necessarily in this order, a set of systems, a brand, a management team that all understands the systems, and everybody's trained and ready to go, and you deliver the product or service without your day-to-day or your family's day-to-day intervention. That's a business to me, where you have some key roles, some high-level executive roles, and you carry those out and you make sure you steer the ship and look for the long-term direction of the business. So I guess all this conversation gets back to what I talked about earlier. You got to get in your mind, guys, you're business builders. You're building a business, and building a business is a completely different thing than doing service calls, running a business, selling air conditioners. You got to be able to get yourself to the point to where you have a plan, you're executing the plan on a daily basis, and your client fulfillment systems is so strong and is in place that your customers are delighted and refer you and without problems. So anyway, I feel like I'm getting way in the weeds, but direct me where you want me to go.
No, so yeah, it's know your numbers, and those are things that you're very passionate about, and that is what has a big, huge part of what is taking you from when you were 25 and bought the business from your mom to where you are now is you had to know the numbers. And one thing of your three fundamentals, one of them in the middle there is lead conversion. I want to ask you what that means to you from your side of the business, and kind of tell you from our side that we make that a big part of the conversation when we're bringing on a new client. We try to take them through the sales, the life cycle, the journey of a customer coming on board, from them calling you, no matter how that lead source came in. But one big thing that we've noticed is that the handling of that lead is just as important or more important than making sure the lead even comes in, because what's the point in paying for it if it's not going to be taken care of the right way? So one thing that we had found is it was a big problem for some of our clients. Like the phones weren't getting answered, or inquiries were not being responded to. So one thing that Drew has started implementing on our sales calls is actually, he has a two-step process where he does a discovery call with them first to see where they're at in their business, what are their goals, and does it even make sense, for us to possibly work together and then have the actual sales call or demo. But on that sales call and demo, when we get to that place, Drew has started, like, literally 1 minute before we jump on the Zoom, he fills out a form fill on the client's website and puts his real contact information. And what we're seeing is about 98% of the time, 45 minutes into the call, he still has not received any contact information back. So we point that out, that there's a issue in their lead handling process, because who thinks that anybody in today's times with technology is going to wait hours or a day or two for someone to get back to them if they're interested in either getting a quote on a system or having somebody else do a repair. So we've actually put some things in so that if somebody fills out a form, so that we're not putting everything on our client CSRs, that a phone call actually directly rings into the office immediately, so that they can push a button and it'll call that person back, so that the lead follow-up time is less than, let's say 60 seconds, because I just don't think in today's time anybody's going to wait 30, 45 minutes or a couple hours if they're expecting somebody to call them. So that's where we see lead conversion being super important, but that's one of your three fundamentals. So what does it mean to you with Goettl and running an HVAC business?
It's a big area of focus for us, and it should be for everybody. There's two parts to lead conversion. It's seeing your ad and converting it to a booked appointment. That's an element of lead conversion. And then there's the lead conversion once you run the lead to convert it to a sale. And I'm generalizing, saying, lead generation is for service or for replacement, for instance, or for the bigger jobs. For plumbing, my water heater's flooding, I converted it to an appointment, and I converted it to a sale. So, it's just critical that you have to track that and understand it. It's funny, you guys in your business, the turnover in customers in your business is much higher than it needs to be, I believe, in the web marketing business. Right. And I think that the solution to that would be, you come in, because most guys are not going to have the plan yet. They don't understand the nuances of it yet. Hey, by the way, let me say this. When I say the word yet, I want everybody to understand. I was just like most of you. There's not one spot in this business I haven't been. I can clearly remember calling my mom when I was, before I was 30 years old, bragging to her that I was going to do $10,000 this month in sales, and believing that was all the money in the world. And so I know what it feels like to be whatever piece and part you are in the game. So if I were you, Jonathan, I'd come in and I'd say, okay, let's sit down with you and consult with your clients. Say, okay, Let's talk about leads. How many do you need? Do you have a plan? Probably not. If you don't have a plan, let's make a plan together, a very simple plan. We're going to go get you 250 leads this month. You're going to convert those leads into appointments. Your booking rate is not 100%. And everyone needs to understand that just because you bought 250 leads does not mean you have 250 appointments. And what is that delta? And that delta is a place where you need to work on your call center, your operators, to make sure that they're the best they can be to book. And then you take it from there and you say, okay, now I have to dispatch this call to a salesman or to a technician. There's cancellations inside there. So you got to understand what the cancellation number is and what is your rehash process to get them back up in the game if they cancel for whatever reason. And then you finally get to the house. I mean, the tragedies I've seen over the years with guys in your business, Jonathan, is that your customers don't understand how to monetize these leads you're creating for them. And so the natural course of their natural reaction is you're not doing a good job. Right. And so if you create them a little plan and teach them these elements of it, you probably have a much higher success rate, right? So then, you go to lead conversion in the home, and that's either with the technician or the salesman. And that requires tracking and skills and a system to make sure that that you have the best chance possible for a close at the right average ticket, the right gross profit contribution to overtake your overhead and create a profit. So, I went out and I bought hundreds of sales systems over the years and tried to implement them and seminars and this guy and that guy. And finally, I just got fed up with it when I bought Goettl. And, I'd paid a guy some obscene amount of money to create a new sales system. And I won't go into all the details, but he kind of wasted 9 months. And I finally just said, you know what, I'm done with this. This is the definition of insanity. So I went with my couple of my key guys and I Googled sales system. And there was, 50,000 pages to look for sales system. And then I went to the images and I looked at the diagrams of the sales system. And I said, okay. And we put, those big pieces of paper on the wall, where you write. I said, okay, let's write down what every sales system in this 50,000 choices has in common. And we said, okay, one's relationship. All right, you got to build a relationship. First thing you do with any sales system. So put that down. He wrote relationship. And then what's the next thing? Well, you got to inspect, what the customer needs. So inspections. So we put the inspections. And then we put S where we had solutions. The next thing was packaged up solutions, packaged solutions for the customers. And then the next thing is that was on every sales system was execute on overcoming objections. Overcoming objections to the sale. Now, most sales system had, 6 to 10 steps. But I wanted a system that just anyone could use, and we use for everything we do. Selling a fan motor, selling an air conditioner, selling a water heater. And so we created the system. It's called RISE, because I wanted an acronym. We build a relationship, we inspect the conditions, we have packaged solutions, and we execute on closing objections. And we created manuals for everything we do. And people follow the RISE system. So my point here is you don't have to get off and go find the sales guru and try to implement these very, very difficult things that you can't train anybody by. It's extremely expensive. There's some great sales guys out there. There's great materials, don't get me wrong. But in most things, if you take a very simple approach, the answer is right there. it's extremely important that you execute every single time the same way on your sales, so that you can convert it into revenue, which is to the point I was talking about earlier. You either, if you got a company that can really execute on sales, they're going to think, if you got them some leads, they're going to think you're the greatest digital marketer ever, right? It's when they can't make the sale, you're a terrible digital marketer, right? You didn't bring me any revenue.
Right.
So I would say, these three pieces is something like you could value add for your company. You could just have a very clear basic system for them to follow and track and understand, so that you can coach them to utilize your service better.
Completely agree. And we're taking that approach now, because we're seeing that accountability is a big thing. So we need to be able to hold ourselves accountable as a marketing company, but also we need to be able to hold our client accountable by what is their real close rates and what are they doing with those leads. And, so that way there's not a confusion, and we can see their goals and hold them to it each month. So,
and by the way, this is something I want everybody to think about, and certainly for the larger operators, you get this, but when you start taking the degradation of a lead from not booked to appointment, to the cancellations, to the closing rates, it universally is as bad as 50%. You bought 100% of leads. You can really only execute on half of them. It's terrible. And so I want you to think about it. It doubles your lead cost. Your inability to execute doubles and sometimes triples your lead costs. So, you invest in these leads, make sure you have the other two pieces tight, so that you can make the best out of that investment.
We had a question come in that I definitely want to make sure we get answered. I want to be respectful of your time, for sure. Joe Kirby he said, you've ran multiple companies in your career. Many in our region are struggling to find good talent or good technicians, and keeping them. What ideas or strategies have you used that have worked the best?
So, let me start by saying this. I went to, I don't know, maybe 5, 6 years ago, I went to an ACA convention, and Michael Gerber was speaking. And, remember the story, I read his book, and this is the part where I met him, and he said, let's write a book together. That's how we got to this book. Well, the one thing he said, which was the most valuable sentence, the most valuable chunk that I got out of the whole ACA convention. Not that the ACA convention was certainly worthwhile in all aspects. Don't get me wrong, but the one gem I got out of it was, he said, your business is a school for your employees. Mm-hmm. You will never succeed until you create a school for your employees. Your business is a school for its employees. And so until you go ahead and make that investment, and it should have been done before you ever started. It should have been done before I ever started. But, like I said earlier, here's how we install my proprietary system. Here's how we do a service call. Here's how we answer the telephone. Here's how we track our metrics, right? And we train our people. So I guess what I'm saying here is, if you really want to be great at it and not be hampered by the challenge of the attrition of the HVAC and plumbers and getting in the trades, you got to create a school. You just have to. Next thing is, it's no different. It's just like one of the three fundamentals, right? You want to go out and get employees, you got to generate a lead, you got to convert the lead to a sale, and you got to fulfill your obligations to them, and you got to track it. And so we really made great gains we started this probably 7 years ago, 6, 7 years ago. We actually hired full-time recruiters in every single branch. And, I don't know that they're really out recruiting so much as they are making sure we have ads running every single week, making sure that we're fielding every single call, every single inquiry, and, managing 6 or 8 different lead sources to get these people in front of our, our managers to hire. So you just have to put that amount of effort. If you're waiting for Prince Charming to ride up on his white horse and save you, you're going to be waiting a long time. You just got to put a system in place that's going out and constantly filling your pipeline with people that you can either utilize immediately because they have the skills and they have the caliber and character that you need, or you put them through your little school. So, I mean, that's if I had to boil it down, and I've done everything. I have had job fairs, and I have, I personally make it. Here's something like another tip that maybe you need to consider. Even where I've got to today, I talk to every single air conditioning guy and plumbing guy I ever see. If I'm at the gas station, I see one, I'll go talk to them. We give away flashlights for our company, representing me holding a flashlight for my dad when I was 10. But, I'll go give them a flashlight and I'll just chat with them about the business. I'll get a business card. And we've been keeping a database on people for years. I have thousands of technicians and plumbers that we just got their business cards, and then we try to work and find their home numbers and this and that, and we market to them routinely, newsletters, and just constantly in their face. But it's getting more and more difficult. So, you're just going to have to grow your own. We made a goal this year to hire 50 veterans, and one is the right retiring veterans. One is it's the right thing to do, but two, a military veteran typically has some skill sets that really lend itself well to our type of business. Most of them are, work with their hands a bit. They're working on things, or working on machines, and like we really like the Air Force guys who worked on the airplanes. But anyway, and then we're able to leverage them with their GI Bill and send them to the Perfect Tech Academy in Fort Worth, Texas, that specializes in veterans, and they put them through a 6-week program. And so they come out of the program where they knew nothing about air conditioning. At least they know what a condenser is. They know how to troubleshoot basic and know what, the basic stuff. And then we put them through, an apprenticeship program inside our business. But anyway, so we had a goal of hiring 50 of these veterans this year, and it was such a success by April that we decided to add 50 to the number and get 100 veterans through that school and trained up and dispatch them to our centers, our branch.
Created a campaign around that, like that you were trying to hire veterans, and as a good marketing strategy, publicity strategy for you. And then now what it's turned into, you can also use that Goettl's was able to hire 100 military veterans, and I think that, really hits home for a lot of people, and could be a good strategy for anybody on this call.
So to your point, we use a lot of radio for advertising, and typically we have 3 messages at a time going on. And so, but one of the messages is always hiring. It's always about hiring. What's the benefits of working for us? Do you know somebody that have these skills? We will train them. And then most recently, we've been really putting out that we will pay for a school for veterans to learn the trade. And so again, it's lead generation activity. You got to generate the lead and convert them, and I got to tell you guys, when you stand back from the business and look at it that pure, you don't get distracted by all the nonsense that goes on every day. And this guy's trucks broke down, and this guy didn't show up, and this customer's complaining, and this particular air conditioner does not have, has a manufacturer defect. You stand back from it like, I got to make these three things happen every day: lead generation, lead conversion, client fulfillment. And then you have a team beneath you that handles the day-to-day.
Awesome information. I would encourage anyone on the call, if you're not going to be one of the 50 that are going to receive Ken's book and an autographed copy of the book, to please use the link that I provided. I will drop it again in the chat now. Go to kengoodrich.com. You can purchase the book to see if you're one of the 50. And then if you have any additional questions that you would personally like to ask Ken, he's given me permission to leave his email address. It's there on the screen in the chat box, ken@kgoodrich.com. Ken, I can't thank you enough. I had a couple of additional great questions, and we've run out of time. So I do want to take you up on your offer of coming back soon, and you and I will format out some.
Well, it looks like my meeting's running a little late, so I got 10 more minutes if you want to ask anything else.
Well, one thing that I would like to leave everybody with is you had told me a couple of things that you feel are killers when you were getting started and taking over the business, and then a couple of things that you see continuously, either businesses that you're buying or just people in the industry. And you told me that they were not knowing their margin, right? Or being priced right and collecting on the money. So can you touch on those two things? Could you had mentioned to me a couple of days ago on our call that those are important to you, and kind of tell us why?
All right, so let me back up a little bit. So years ago, when I started run multi-branch businesses, I created a system called Branch Right. And so, what are the key elements of running a branch? So we knew that we were always heading the right spot. That the key elements were being addressed. And so, the key elements are, number one, are your people right? Do you have the right people of the character and caliber that you need to execute the business plan? Next thing is the positions right. Do you have an organizational chart? You have people in positions with, position agreements or position, what do they call that? We call it position agreements, job descriptions, that will direct your team for what their roles are to deliver your excellent service to your customers. And then we find out that most people are priced wrong. They don't understand pricing. So are you priced right? The next thing is, are you paid right? So, I've priced my products and service properly. Now I have to pay my people properly so that I maintain my margin. There's all kinds of goofy formulas that I see out there, but the formula has to be such that you maintain a margin and don't give big part of your margin dollars away to your technicians or sales guys. You want to make sure they're handsomely compensated, but not to the detriment of the whole business. So I got my positions are, my people are right, my positions are right. I got an org chart. My pay is right. My price is right. Then my lead generation is right. My lead conversion right. My client fulfillment's right. And then finally, my accountability is right. And what I mean by accountability is the business is ran by metrics. It is completely ran. You want to, I liken this to, for us air conditioning guys, look at your business as an air conditioner. And when that thermostat closes, the switch closes on the thermostat, certain things happen. And all these things happen in sequence, and they, through the process, they create cold air, AKA profit, if your business is that way. And so you got to stand back, and that's something that always helped me because I clearly understood how an air conditioner worked. And so that's how I kind of got my mind around the systematic execution of a business. It's a system. This happens.
Okay.
You know, there's 24 volts. It's powering a thermostat, waiting to turn on. It turns on. It does these things, just like your business. So anyway, let's go back to what you originally asked. I wanted to kind of get that for context, but you know, priced. Here's some rules that I know for sure. In every single market in the US, the premium price provider is always number one. The most expensive guy is always number one. I don't know why it is in our industry. And by the way, let me make sure you understand that. When I say most expensive, what I mean is they're upper end price. They're also the low cost provider because they're well organized. So they create the most margin on every single job. So in our business, because of we have to build things, we have to construct a system, you know, can't be Walmart. So on pricing, there's different formulas of, you know, that have been around for many, many years. You know, fundamental pricing formulas that everybody who owns a business clearly needs to understand. What are those formulas? And pick the one that's right for you. So a book I recommend from time to time is, gosh, now I don't quite remember the name of it, but it's Proper Pricing by Matt Michelle of Service Roundtable. Positive Proper Pricing, something like that. But you can look up Matt Michelle, Positive Pricing, and it gives you all the details on how to come up with your proper price. You know, it's one thing to say, you know, I bought this flat rate system and they said you should charge $250 an hour flat rate. And you say, okay, make me a book, and you start selling that. But really, you got to understand it. If you understand why the numbers are there, you're going to run your business better. So you need to understand the mathematics of the pricing so that you can, you know, make a profit. But I bought a lot of companies that are in trouble, failing, and day one, I walk in, I say, give me your price books, and I throw them in the trash. I go, here's your new price book, priced properly. Give them a little, you know, discussion why, and you know, make the technicians and salesmen understand why the changes and why it's necessary and such. And you work through that process for a while, but we immediately turn companies around just by that one thing, priced improperly.
Yeah. So Jim Schaefer, appreciate it. He dropped it in the chat. The power of positive pricing.
Yeah. The power of positive pricing.
Matt Mitchell.
Matt Michelle.
All right. Well, what I'd like to do is for everyone that's still on the call and for anyone that will be sending out this replay to, what I'd like to do, Ken, is I'll put in the email message that we send out to everyone that we will bring you back soon in the future. You had told me before we did this call that if we didn't have time to cover anything or wanted to go more in detail with anything, if you'd be more than welcome to come back. So what I'm going to do is when I send out the email and communicate with the people that were on today's webinar is to let them, I'll create a little survey and kind of let some voting take place of some topics that they would like to cover and let you kind of dive much deeper into. So we'll kind of let the audience drive us in the direction of what they would like to hear that would help them in their day-to-day business, if that would be okay with you.
Yeah, no problem at all. And by the way, I talk to many contractors every single day all over the world at no charge, just, you know, me trying to give back. But, you know, you can reach me in a lot of different ways. Certainly you got my email, you know, I'm in some of the HVAC and plumbing Facebook groups and such. And a lot of guys message me and just run things by you. So I'm happy to help any way I can.
I really appreciate that. Well, I'm going to wrap this up, Ken. I just want to thank you again. It's been great talking to you. I've enjoyed just the one-on-one talks with you to get to know you and your business mind and how you started and where you're at today. And I'm looking forward to getting to know you even better. So I want to thank everybody that's on the call. I want to thank York for helping us put this together, and I'll be in touch with you soon, and we'll figure out what questions that people want to have answered by you, and we'll have you back soon.
Okay, great.
Thank you very much. You have a great day, and I really appreciate it.
All right, thanks.
Bye-bye. Thank you, everyone. You'll have a great day.